This is a fun one, and I know a lot of Cowboys fans. Obviously, there's a lot of Cowboys fans that are Texas fans. But Jose says, Nick, do you believe the Cowboys tanking for Arch is a good strategy? And a follow-up from Soul Scream that I think is also a good point. He says, Jose, I feel like the Mannings would convince Arch to do everything to get out of the Cowboys drafting him. We know what happened with Eli, but could they tank for Arch? What do you see happening, especially with Dak's contract?
Let me ask you, do you feel like Arch is there 1 or 2 years?
He's there 2 years.
He is?
Yes. We've talked about this.
That's crazy.
And I've talked about this multiple times. Bro, going back to high school, even before he committed to Texas.
No, I know the plan. But if he goes and wins a Heisman and a national championship this year, he's coming back another year?
Well, I mean, look at how long his uncles played, right? And how many guys they had. What is the threshold the NFL loves? 25 games. I don't think Arch will need 25 games to go number 1 overall based on who he is as a prospect, what his last name is, and what he's been able to do so far. But I do think, it could depend on the draft order potentially. Who would those teams be? Who would have the number 1 pick? I think that could influence coming back potentially. But, dude, I'm telling you, like, going back to high school, even before they made the decision it was Texas, there was buzz he was going to be in college 4 years, and there's only been more confirmation on that from other sources since he's been at Texas. And, dude, the plan was for him to start as a sophomore, and their plan was to be there 4 years. And he didn't start as a sophomore because Quinn came back. So, with him, I think that'll be important. And, also, again, the Mannings have always been very smart. They don't want, their guys, their kids, whatever, going places that they know they can't be successful or that they have a chance to not be successful. The 25 games threshold, again, is incredibly important. Like, you can't simulate experience, throws on air, or pass attempts in game. You can't simulate that. So I think that could factor into it. Again, I think he could go number 1 overall after 1 year at Texas, but I could also see the family being like, no, dude, you need to be more ready to play in the league. They don't want him showing up game 1 in the league and he's shitting down his leg because he's only played, 14 games that weren't at Isidore Newman. You know what I mean? So,
okay, so let's say 2 years. Let's say
2 years. Yeah.
First off, the Cowboys are not going to tank. Jerry doesn't have it in him to tank, quote unquote. But I think if they ended up in a spot where they were able to take Arch somehow in 2 years, they would for sure take that. I'd be shocked if they didn't. It would be there, but they are never going to consciously tank. It's not in their blood. They had the opportunity to last year. They were 3-7 at one point, and they were like, "Hey," everyone was just like, "Hey, we can get a top 3 pick here if we just let it ride." And they decided they wanted to continue winning, and they ended up with the number 12 pick instead.
Yeah. Purgatory, man. It's the worst as a fan when your team doesn't have like a top 5, top 10 pick, but they're not good enough to make the playoffs either.
Yeah.
Because usually it's like a 2 or 3 year stint of them being in the same exact draft spot. At least for the 49ers, it's kind of been like that at times.
Well, last time the Cowboys were in this spot, they drafted Micah Parsons at 12. So,
hey,
they drafted CeeDee Lamb, I think, at 17 or 18. So there's hope there.
Yeah. Could Sark and Arch be a package deal? Potentially. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, Jake Bayless makes a great point, similar to Luck, where he could be the top QB prospect, want to be in college for 4 years. So,
yeah,
love that. Soul Scream said 100% Jordan. That's why I think Arch would Eli Manning his way out of places like Dallas and other dysfunctional organizations. Love that. The Steelers entered the chat. Oh, boy. Arch in the Steel City throwing to George Pickens.
That'd be fun.
Arch and George Pickens on the same team kind of makes me giggle a little bit.
No way George Pickens is still there.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, the Mannings might get this terrorist off my son's team. What are we doing? Yeah. I don't know what Henny's going on. You're getting banned, my friend. Nick literally worked in the Texas market for several years just because, he has a Miami Heat hoodie and was a fan of Jimmy Butler, is a fan of Jimmy Butler. Doesn't mean he doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, this dude climbed the ladder in the sports industry faster than anyone else did without a degree. Like, like respectfully, fuck off. So yeah. But I don't know. With the Cowboys, anything new, I don't know, in regards to the feel of the building, anything like that, under the new regime. I know you probably haven't been in there a ton because, last few months, Super Bowl, other stuff like that. But yeah. Damn, hey, man, this band button is nice. You're out of here too, Bez Pez. So yeah, but any different vibes in the building, with the new staff now in place, kind of. I know Schottenheimer obviously was retained in a different role, but anything feel different?
Quiet on the front. It's quiet on the front. This week was we were able to catch up with all the coaches and coordinators and meet them for the first time, and kind of everything that we've talked about is that they're gonna bring a creative run game into what Schottenheimer has in his pass game. So that's going to be a fascinating marriage between the two. So I'm curious to see what that looks like, but it's really quiet on the front right now. We'll get to the combine next week. Schottenheimer will be there. He's going to have a press conference at the combine as well, which is new for us because McCarthy never went to the combine. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, and man, this is a great transition. CB talking about spring game. Yes, I did see my boss BK call it a chicken shit move by Sark. I understand his frustration. I understand a lot of people's frustrations. The spring game, it is, it was an opportunity for people to go see the team in person that aren't able to, afford the regular game days in the fall, the travel in the fall, hotels, tickets, all that. And I understand the frustration, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Because now that it's becoming a trend where schools aren't doing the spring game, I don't really expect that to change in the future,
I would make the same exact decision if I was in that place. If I was strong-armed into being like, hey, no, we need to have a spring game, how realistic would it be to do it without TV there?
Yeah, I mean, that is a decent point, but I don't know. I think like with what the kind of feedback has been from the Texas fan base, I think Texas, they usually do an open practice or something, I think in fall camp, but like they need to have at least one or two in the spring for the fans to come.
Yeah, and I bet they will.
Yeah, but the spring game thing is like Sark's main excuse he's going with is, they played 30 games the last 2 years. That is a great excuse. It does make sense. But part of it is also it makes it way easier to play roster defense whenever, you don't have a spring game. It's the same thing that Matt Rule brought up. And even though the spring game is, super vanilla in terms of playbook, other stuff, you can tell who's a dude and who's not. And most of the time it's the younger guys playing because they don't want, the older impact players getting hurt. Yeah. So, I understand both sides of this, but I think to make it right, like they need to do at least one, if not two, open practices in the spring to, give them something since they don't have the spring game anymore.
But also to play like devil's advocate here, if the spring game was like the ultimate, okay, let's look at this, let's look at these teams, see what they got, and let's go poach, then Prince Dorba and Jonte Cook would have had bags from Ohio State and Oregon like on their doorstep the next day after their spring game performances.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't know if they did or not. A lot of stuff is kept in house now.
I think Dorba was pre-NIL. I think Dorba's spring game was pre-NIL. Whenever he went crazy, he had like 4 sacks in the spring game.
Yeah. Hey, you think schools were hitting up Thatcher Milton last year? Like, hey, buddy, we'll give you a Scally.
We'll give you the 3, bud.
Yeah. No, true. But Jeff Choate turned on the spring game. It's like Kai Woods. Come on, man. Come on.
I'm telling you, once Kai Woods gets his opportunity, it is over for everybody.
Man,